make it that little bit wider. You could just increase that width. Now, I think, yes, I do believe this, the outer piece is 7 inches wide cut, and the pockets are 6.5 inch. So as long as you use the same length of pieces, you'll be absolutely fine, but you could make it wider. So if you wanted to make this, the outer piece, the one that flaps all around, if you wanted to make it 10 inches wide, and then your pockets, I would cut those 1/2 inch less, so 9.5. You could do that. If you wanted to make them 12 inches wide and 11.5 for the pockets, absolutely fine. You do whatever you like. What you could also do, which I thought of afterwards, is to actually pop a little handle on here. So you could do that right at the end. I could do it now. Is make a little strap and just attach it at each side so that you could hold it, which I think would be quite a nice idea. Even if you wanted to, you could put a long strap and attach that so that you have a bag. If you're going out for the day and all you've got is lots of different cards, so what you'd use it for, or cash and all sorts, but it's quite nice. You see the little pockets in here, whoops, in between. Get my finger in there. No, in between. These are where, there's your hidden pockets as well. But yeah, it could be. And if I were making it a lot wider for a bag, I would probably put 3 snaps across here or more, or even use Velcro across there and then on this side as well. But you just have to think about where you put your Velcro for, yes, and I would do that before the very last part where we attach the outer to our section of pockets. Okay, so let's just pop that aside and I'll pop you down so that we can see what we need. Now, I have done a little bit of preparation beforehand, purely because, there we are, it's a lot of repetition, and I'm sure you don't want to see me sewing around lots of rectangles and turning them through and top stitching. We want it to be just a little bit better than that. So it shouldn't really take too long at all. Can't see anything, but that's it. So what we're going to need, as we have here. So I've got my outer and my lining fabric. We need 5 pieces here. These are for your pockets. So 5 pieces of your outer, 5 pieces of your lining, and 5 pieces of interfacing, which I have already fused to the wrong side of my outer fabric. On this one, I have used H250, which is the papery one. Now let's just have a look, because I have got some little odd bits which obviously got chopped off, so that I can show you exactly what it feels like. So here is my H250, as you can see there, and there is my G700. So H250 is the papery one. It's the interfacing that dressmakers use a lot of the time for collars, cuffs, facings down the front of a garment, but it's papery. So I'm using that. You can use either, but on the first one I used G700, which, as you can see, is just like a fabric, and it's got adhesive, dry adhesive on one side, and that's the side that goes down onto the wrong side of your outer fabric. And then with the H250, as you can see, can you hear that's papery? That has got a fusible on one side, and there is the dry side. So you can iron on the dry side. With both of them, I wouldn't use steam. I would just use a hot, dry iron for both of them. If you use too much steam, especially with the papery H250, it can lift as well. The other thing I would say, when you fuse either of these onto your fabric, let it cool down before you start using it. So set it aside for 10 minutes or so before you start stitching. So the choice is yours as to which you prefer to use on your pouch. Right, so just reiterating, 5 of the pocket outer, 5 of the interfacing, 5 of your lining, and then just 1 of your, here we are, so 1 of your outer, so that wraps around the whole pocket section, and 1 interfacing, which I put on there. Now I just cut it a little bit. Now I cut it the same width as my pocket ones, the interfacing. So I've got 1/4 inch here. That doesn't matter at all. It actually helps the outer, because you won't be stitching through 2 lots of interfacing and 2 lots of fabric. Makes it a lot easier and a lot neater around the edges. So, and then I've got my lining piece, which is just a lining piece, and it's that bit longer so that it takes the whole of your pocket section and wraps around and gives a flap as well. So let's put that to the side for the moment. And it's a similar thing that we're going to do with each of them. We're going to use 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm using a short stitch length as if I were doing patchwork, and we're going to put these 2 pieces right sides together. Now hopefully these should be exactly the same size. You can put your lining on the top or the bottom, but just make sure they line up. That's it, like so. Because I had mine shifting just a little bit. I might even, let's turn it this way. I'll stitch from this side, knowing that, making sure that everything lines up. Now I'm going to leave a gap of probably 3 or 4 inches on one of the long sides, central-ish, but doesn't need to be. And as I say, 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'll start at one end of where my gap is and stitch and just reverse there, and then stitch down to the corner and pivot. And again, just make sure that it's still lining up, and make sure it's lining up nicely down this side as well. And you can put pins all the way around here if you'd like to, but I'm just holding that nice and firmly till I get to that corner, and then just readjust at every point. So I'm making sure that aligns there, and stitching up this side too, like so. No, we've gone a little bit too far. We'll go back 1 stitch there. That's better. And then, as I say, I'm just making sure that lines up fully just there. Stitch across this edge to 1/4 inch from the end, and then turn that round and come back down. Now I'm going to leave a gap to about here. It just makes turning easier. Okay, so I'm just going to set that one to the side for the minute, because we're going to do exactly the same with our long piece. So right sides together. Oh, little fly. And let's see if I can find a pin, because I want this. The longer the piece, the more you will need to anchor the pieces together. Oh, I've got a few pins here. That's good. So let's just put a pin in there. And you see how easily that just comes off of being aligned. So if we can pop that there, then smooth it down and make sure that this is lined up all down this edge, which at the minute it's not. There we go, push that over. That is much better. And let's put a pin, let's put it halfway down to hold that. And then here, just make sure, there we are, got that lined up there. Just smooth that down. There we are, that's much better. Although that's moved across there. So let's just bring that over. Right, so again, I'm leaving a gap in that one of the long sides, and we'll stitch down to the end here, and then we will pivot round to go across the short edge, like so, and down the long edge here. So as I said, I'm using a 2 stitch length and a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm making sure the edge of my foot is aligned with the edge of the fabric, taking my pins out before I get to them, and along the top. Now, because that doesn't align, that doesn't really matter too much, because that's purely the flap. Now, also, I'll say here, if you had wanted to have your flap curved at one of these ends, so here, we're leaving the one end straight at the bottom here, but if you did want to curve it, you could have drawn a curve and stitched around here and around here. I'm just making sure that, there we are, and then I'm coming down here, or as I have done, just stick with your straight edge. So down the side we go. Here is where I started, so I'm just going to leave this nice long gap. Okay, let's just make sure, or you can't really see, yeah, I can see that I've got, because my interfacing was narrower on this side, I can see my stitching is there. So if we turn back to here, and all I'm going to do now is clip off these corner points. There we are, just to give me some nice points when we turn it through. And the other thing, while it's on here, here is my opening. And what I like to do, this gives you a nice edge where we have to close the gap. If we fold that back, so I'm pulling it back to where the stitching is, so that's anchoring it there, and then I'm just finger pressing so that seam is back. We are going to press it shortly, but if we press that back first, and I'm going to do exactly the same with this smaller part, one of the pocket sections, and I'll just show you what we do on here. So again, let's do it this way around. Here is my opening. So if we just roll that seam allowance back and finger press along there, we can actually press with the iron, but just to remind me, I've pressed that back with my fingers just to make that so much easier when we come to turn it through. So let's just get my iron on the heating, turn that on. That should be, oh yes, that's warming up. And we're just now going to turn this through to the right side. So there's the gap in my pocket piece, and I'm just going to one of the furthest points, poke that through, and then the other one there next to it, and we can pull that. So this is just an easier way. And then in this gap as well, let's just pull the other. So I'm putting my thumb up into the point and pushing it through, and then similarly with that other corner at that end. And because we've got the bigger gap, it pulls through easily. So there is, let's see if we can, so I've got a pen here without the point out, and just push that a little bit further into those corners. Similarly here, and I shall go in with something a little bit more pointy, but just get the bulk of that out. So there is my gap again. So let's just I'm using the side of the scissors rather than pushing the point. There is that one. And while it's in here, let's go around to here. Just push that little point out. And then let's just turn it that way. Okay. I think we've got that one. And we did we do that one? I think so. And then down at this end as well. Just carefully push that, because we don't want to push the scissors through those corners. So there I've got my first one turned through, and then with the larger piece, this is the outer wrap, if you like, into that corner, push it through, into the other corner, push it through, and then we'll just pull that down a little bit, and then we can go into these other corners. Let's pull that one and this one here, and pull them both through like that. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So they're almost poked out in the corners already because we pulled them through in that way of putting your finger in there, or your nail in there, just to get the point out as far as you could to begin with. So look, that's almost there. Just carefully push that in. This one needs a little bit more pushing, but carefully does it. There we go. Right, so now we're going to press. So you can see already, because I nail pressed that back, when we just hold where the stitching starts, where the seam is, if you just hold there, and you can almost see now, that's just folding in together beautifully to give you a nice straight edge. So having got my iron, let's just bring the cord around here, we can just press that into place. That's it. And we can go up there. I mean, normally I press these other edges first and then go onto the, there we are, I'll do that in a moment, but let's just do these ends. Just hold that. A heavier weight iron on the ironing board is also a little bit better than a small iron, because it's got that weight. So let's just press those, and then if we flick that over, and this is where there we are, this is where our opening was, and that is perfect, just because we did that little turning back. So there's the first one, and let's go for our second one here. So let's do what I would normally do, and that is press the closed seams first of all, because then with the open edge it almost goes into place. So I'm just going up to those corners. Let's just see, there's just a little bit there that just wants to just wiggle that. That's better. Right, so we'll press that corner and that corner as well. Then we'll look at where the opening is here. So again, what we can do is just hold the seam, and you can see how that just presses together, and then you can see that's a nice straight edge. So let's pop that down like that, lay one on top of the other, and we can give that a press like that. Let's move that out of the way. Whoops. And you can see that falling off, but okay. So had we got a little bit of thread there? No, we hadn't. Okay, so you can see that's nice and straight, ready for our stitching. So all we need to do now is stitch around that outer edge. So I'm going to increase the stitch length to just a standard 2.6, 2.5, and I'm going to start away from the corner. I'm going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. Actually, that's just bowing out just a little bit, but I'm sure There we are. So we will stitch all the way around, and we are actually going to make 5 just like this. So I would get them all to the same stage. I've just left the one to do now, because otherwise you'd be watching me doing exactly the same thing. So I thought if I show you one, you are going to easily be able to do the other 4 in exactly the same way. So try to get your stitching nice and consistent distance from the edge. And then when we come to where we started, have a look at your stitches and stitch 2 or 3 stitches over where we started, and just trim those threads off so we've got nothing there. There we go. So there's our 1. And then of course we have got 2, 3, 4, 5 that I've already done. So let's just pop those aside, and then we're going to do exactly the same. Well, there's our gap with our long outer piece. So I always start on the edge which has a hole, which has the gap, and stitch that first. So I'm going over that gap now, and that will automatically be closed then as we top stitch. So there we are. So down to that edge, and I'm doing about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge, but I'm not looking at the needle. I'm looking at a point on my my foot, and I'm keeping that lined up with the edge so that I can get as good a consistent distance from the edge as I can. So as I say, don't look at the needle, just look purely at the, get a bit of thread out the way. Oof, okay. Yeah, as consistent as you can by following the foot as opposed to the needle. Okay, and we're just coming round to join up from where we started. So it's only a couple of stitches there. So there is my piece of thread just there, and then on this side just clip those off. There we are. So there's our outer piece. We are going to set that aside because we don't need that at the minute. We're going to work on our pockets. So we've got 5 all the same, and what we need to do now, so you can see I've already drawn there. If you want to, you can fold these in half and give them a press. In fact, I will do that. I don't think I popped that on the instructions, but a bit of thread as well. So let's just pop the iron on again. It's just to find the centre, of the pocket piece, which is actually going to be the fold at the bottom. So let's just fold that, and these are the pieces that we're going to see most. So having a look here, so where I have my flowery, my larger flowery, and those inner, there we are. No, so actually, so I am going to have that. My flowery ones are going to be, you'll see them on the very first pocket, but my flowery one is going to be on those small inner pockets and here. So we'll do exactly the same. But just have a look to see which way round you want your fabric to be showing. So as I say, I'm just going to fold these in half. So line up the short edges like that, and then just give that a press. And then similarly here, line up those short edges, and there we are. And give that a press. Oops, so that one hasn't, there we are, that's better. Give that a press, and this one 2, so 3, 4, nicely lined up. Or you don't need to do this at all, but it just helps with the folding at the bottom, which is on the crease when we've got the outer strip containing this pocket section. It just helps that to fold really nicely. So last one, and give that a press too. There we are. So we've just got that a nice crease at the bottom. So what we're going to do now with all of them, which I have done, so as you can see here at one end, I'm going to do one of them now. At one end, I've done all of those 4. You can see that shape here. So this one I haven't done yet, but this shape is 1 inch in from one side. So ruler, 1 inch, ruler. Here we are. And I did this 1/2 inch from the bottom. So I put a ruler on the edge, and then from one of the top short edges down to 4 1/4. And then the same on this other side, 1 inch in and 4 1/4. Okay, and then we're just going to join this bottom edge. So join here. So it's like a letter U, and so that gives us the side pieces, and that also gives a little bit of extra at the bottom. You could take it the whole way down to the bottom, but then if your pieces are that little bit longer, they don't line up very well at the bottom. So I left a little area that isn't showing there. So what we do now, I've got them all marked up there. We are going to pop them. So I put them all at one end. It wouldn't matter, you just switch it round. But I'm going to put them the same fabrics together, either right sides together or lining, depending on which you put together. But you'll notice that this part is on the opposite side. So, no, I'm going to do it this way. That's what I'm going to put, which is as I've done, actually. I'm putting lining pieces together so that I can see this one. So lining pieces, these are all going to be folded the wrong way now, but we will pop them out. So lining pieces together, lining sides, and then I'm going to stitch here. And then that's right. So it's always, so you've got your piece which you're going to stitch at the top. You're going to put them lining together, but making sure that your other drawn is at the other end. I mean, you can always draw it again should you put the wrong pieces together. But all we're going to do is line that up. Let's put those there. So I'm lining those top edges up, and then I'm just going to stitch on these drawn lines. So back over to the machine, and I'll leave it at the default because we're going through quite a few layers. And I'm going to reverse at the top, stitch down to that drawn line at the bottom, pivot that around and stitch across to the edge of that line, and then back up to the other side. Okay, and then we'll reverse at the top there as well and trim. Okay, so that's where we've stitched. Let's shifted that down a little bit, but that will be fine once we've got there. So now we're then going to lift that back piece up, which has got the drawing that we've already done there, and we're going to let this flop down. So we're going to take the next piece and we are going to put lining sides together. So lining sides together there. And as you can see, we want the drawn piece to be there. So let's just line that up as well. Pin or clip if you would like to. And we will stitch on this drawn line as well, making sure that holds together. All right, so we are down to that point there. Keep making sure that that is all lined up across there. And across that bottom part there. And then up the other side. And just reverse at the top. I should be trimming off as we go. So here's the piece that we've just stitched at the underside. So there's the piece we've just stitched here. Here's our underside. Let's pull that up. And there we've got our markings ready there again. So we'll take the next one and always do it to the piece that's unmarked. So I've got my marking at the top there. And we're going to put lining sides together. So you'll know you haven't put the right pieces together if you haven't got the markings showing. So again, let's start at the top here. And let's start stitching and reverse. Let's just see if I can get that little piece of thread out of the way so that I can trim that off. Oh no, okay, you don't want to. Right, so let's just stitch down there, making sure all these other pocket pieces are out of the way, and then making sure that's still aligned at that top edge, and going across the bottom part there, and we're on that drawn line again, and straight up here. There we are. And reverse. Okay, so then again, lift the bottom piece up. There is our drawing again. Open that out, and we're going to put it lining sides together, lining, and push that so that that lines up perfectly. And at the top especially, and down the sides. Pop that under the needle, reverse at the top, and down we go. So again, make sure that we are nicely aligned just there. Across to the other side, one more, and up to the top. There we are. Okay. So at this point, I would see if we can trim off these threads, because all we need to do is pull these pockets back and they're all in a similar place. Okay, so let's go on the other side now, because the other side will give my cut threads. So there's one, and there's two, and there's 3 and 4. So what you'll notice, this one's on this other side as well. What you'll notice, 1, 2, 3, yeah, that's right. What you'll notice is we have all these pockets, let's find, joined together. But we do have, didn't need to have that one there actually, but we do have, yes I do, these ones here, like so. Yeah, we do have a flap at each side. So we've got these 1, 2, 3, 4 pockets here and a flap at each side. So the next thing we need to do so that we form our pockets is we need, this one is going to form a pocket here. We need to pop those two together. So we start at these outer ones and we're going to stitch this flappy piece to the very first piece. And then you'll notice that all of these others line up where they are open. We're going to stitch down the side here. So let's just do one at a time. So I've started at one end here, and which has got the flap, and we are going to line that up, flip the rest of this out of the way so that we can just stitch down this side here. So let's just line that up at the top and down the sides. And this time we're going to stitch a little bit wide. You can either stitch on the same stitch line or go a little bit further in. So I'm doing this not quite 1/4 of an inch in, but a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so I've joined that one, and now okay, so I've joined that, and I now need to join, where are we? We have, which one did I join first? There. And we can either go to the opposite side and join as we go. So yeah, let's do the opposite side here, and then we can start joining the next ones. Oh, we're on there, that's right. So I've joined that side, this side here. So I'm now going to join this side. So we're working our way across. So let's just see if we can flip that out of the way, either from top to bottom, or, whoops, let's just get that out of the way there. So always reverse at the bottom, and when we reach the top, okay, so we've stitched that one together already. So now we need to work with the next one. So the next one is, that's going to be, you'll see there that where are we now? Let's start. Okay, so let's do this one to this one, and then this one to this one. So I'm just, you'll see from the layout where they need to go. Whoops, let's just go, there we are. Which ones need to go, because they pull together and form a pocket. And I do think it's easier actually if you do the opposite side, because we've got those together. So now we've got those, we're now going to do the same one together here. Okay, so that has stitched that one, and we now want to do that one to that one. So let's just push that out of the way so that we can get it under the needle, and then we're not going to miss any. So down we go again there. Okay, so now we have some more attached. So there is our, that's it. So that is there. We now want to go that one to that one, because we've got that pocket piece just there, or the bottom of the pocket, and just push that out of the way. And down we go. Now just be careful, you might have that little black disc there, which can get in the way. So we go down to the bottom there, and it just stops the fabric flowing through. So here we go. So we have this one here. So let's go on the other side. So there we are, we've got that fold at the bottom. So, you know, and then if we tuck that out of the way, we can start from the top here. And reverse. And down we go. Okay, right, so now we're getting there. So we're always going to have a piece where you can see how our sections are, I'm going to trim these while our sections are coming together. And let's have a look here. So the next one we need to do is here to here. So again, just fold those together, and you can see that if you look at it from the side, it's easier to see. So you can understand why it's easier to watch a demo than it is to put the instructions into writing here, into words. And again, that little black disc is just sitting, that's it, that's sitting inside there, so out of the way. Okay, so that side is done there. So while we're there, we can see that that side needs to be done just here. So we can push those bits back, out of the way, fold that so that the top, that's it, matches just there. Fold it back, just making sure, oops, that's it, it's trying to pull itself away from there. So, but I'm keeping this edge here aligned all the time. That little black is in the way. That's it, that's come out of the way now. There we are. I can feel the temperature rising. Okay, so I think we're nearly on to, can you see how the pockets are all joined? The very last one is here. So while I'm here and I can see all these little bits of thread, I am just going to trim those away, as I say, because I can see them. And down here at the bottoms, I should have, oh, lovely cool breeze there. I tell you, sewing always makes me feel warm, and I think that's probably why we tend not to do quite as much sewing during the summer months if it's as hot as it has been. Okay, so we're on to this very last one here. So you can see that is there. And I'm going to pop that under the needle. So just make sure, because of the bulk of these pockets, it does tend to slip these pieces away from each other, so that what you need to do is just probably give it a pin, and I'm just pulling that out of the way so that that little black wheel there doesn't get in the way of my seam there. So down to the bottom and reverse, and do what I should have done and clip those threads while we're on there. And then we just go to the other side. Oh no, have I done the other side one? Oh, perhaps yes. So I've done that end. Oh, look at those bits of thread there. Let's just get those clipped out of the way. And there. Right. And we've just got this very end here. So we can line that up at that top edge and then down to the fold. So do pin there if you would like to. And just this last seam to do. So just reverse again and then all the way to the top, and reverse at that top edge as well. Okay, clip that little bit. It's going to, that's it. And tiny bit there. And I think we're roughly got all those pieces, but you'll find a few along the way. This one just there. Right. So there we have our pocket section all stitched together. And so all we need to do now is to take our outer piece. And so with that, there we are. We're then going to line this up just below the top edge. So can you see that is, I'm doing it probably half an inch below, but you can check as to where you would like it to be by folding this around, okay, and bringing the flap over. So if you wanted it to be, I wouldn't have it flush with the top, I'd have it that little bit further down. So what I'm looking at now, it's a little bit hard to see because they're all the stripes, but this needs to be about 1/4 inch from the edge, or at least equal with this other side. So I'm looking there and looking there. So while I have that in place, I can see I'm going to stitch down here. So just through this very last, so there's one double piece there, and I'm just going to stitch, and this will be on the same stitch line, so reversing at the beginning, but the same stitch line as well, there's two on here, the very first stitch line we did or the second one, but I would do it on that outer stitch line just to hold that together. So if we can clip that little bit of thread off there, and we'll do the outer piece in a moment. So while that is there, we can also then flip to the other side here, making sure that is the same distance here and here. And I'm just going to flip that around, and we're going to stitch down this other side as well. So as I say, I think move these other pocket edges away, and then I'm stitching down that outer stitch line, which was our top stitching line actually, just to secure that in place, and reverse again at the bottom. So that was just the outside pocket. So you can see now we're attached to the outside. So all we need to do now, these bits of these folds should all line up, sit on top of each other nicely, and then we will fold that around while I'm, oh no, that's gone there. Fold that around, and then what we want to make sure is that this then sits, so this is the other edge here, sits with just a little bit of room in there, and we're going to stitch down this one. So this is the very outer pocket piece here, so make sure that is the same distance. Now you won't be able to get right into that piece there, but what we will do is go as far down as we can, which is probably about 1 inch from the bottom, and we'll just reverse there and stitch up to that top line and reverse. So what you can do at the bottom there is to, let's see, you can hand stitch it if you are worried about that little bit being open. Let's just trim that and that. Okay. And then we'll just go to the other side here, line that up, and then I'm going to the bottom part here, and I'm going to stitch as far down, so that's the bottom piece, and I'm just going to stitch down, just make sure that is across there, and I'll stitch down as far as I can go on this one also. So I'm just making sure it's nice and even this side, pulling that back. And yes, you can go just that little bit further on one side because it's the front of the foot. So there's only probably about 1 inch down there that is unattached, top and bottom. Okay. So yeah, you'll see, oh, it's only a minimal amount of difference. Probably looks about the same actually. It just felt as though it was a little bit shorter. There. So clip those threads away. So you have got a little bit of top stitching here, but it all blends in with, there we go. So you can actually, now it would be a good idea to use a friction pen, because you can actually see my drawing there, which I didn't even think about. But as a friction pen, it would disappear. But I don't think you can notice that. Right. So having got our little folder, all our pouch done, we can then, let's just see, we give that a press, but then we need to bring our flap over, and depending on how much you are going to put into here, you could leave a little bit of a gap at the top to allow for it to expand with what is in here. So all I'm going to do is I am going to do two poppers. So I'm going to measure how much. So this has come down to 6.5. So I'm actually going to pop my poppers. I'm going to do them 1.5 inches in from each side. So there's 1.5 inches and there. So let's get our tool. Let's just cut ourselves, punch a little hole where my snap is going to go, and there. Okay, so let's just get those little bits out. Let's just poke it with some tweezers. There we go. There's 1 and there's 2. Right, so once I have those little holes in, I am going to line that up, making sure that is, there we are, central there. And then I'm going to put a pen mark through those holes, which is where, there we are, which is where my next cuts are going to be. So let's just move this down here so that I can see where that hole is. So one is just there, and the other one is just go in there. That's it. It is just there. So just through that top layer, not through the bottom as well. And then we just need to actually do some nice dark blue, just what I have here. So I've got some nice blue that are going to work. So we need one, two, one. I've still got 2 of those. So I want 2 of those, 2 of those, and then outies, outie, and outie. That's it. So let's do the easiest first. Put that aside and that aside. So the top pieces are easiest. So this is the flap. We can pop one button with an outie. So button, outie, squeeze, and button, outie, and squeeze, and these ones, the inside pocket, we need the button to go, whoops, on the inside, so let's drop it in there. So let's just find that little hole. There we go. Let's swivel it around. Lost the hole. And innie. So then that will go in there and squeeze. And yeah, that's typical. There we are. So I'm bound to have lost one of the pieces. So that is the button and the innie. Let's put the button in here. See, mark where the hole is. Oops, there it is. It's in there. Let's get my other finger. So it's my left hand. That's it. Let's just pop that in. And on the top button, so the button, there we are. Okay, that slipped off. So the button goes in the cup, and just make sure we're not pressing fabric in there, and squeeze. So then we can pull that over, pop it in place, and done. So there is your 11 pocket pouch, just like that one, and we are done. Okay, let's just turn us round. And there it is. There it is. So that one comes undone a little bit better. And there we have all of our pouches. There we have our pockets at the side. And I just find it quite a pleasant little make because, yes, it's repetitive. Doesn't need too much fabric for anybody. What you could do actually, if you have, let me see, you could do 5-inch. Could do 5 inches wide fabric, and then you could use layer cake and have lots of different colour pockets inside. Yeah, that actually would be really, really nice to have a layer cake chopped in half, so they're 5-inch by 10-inch. And then for your outer, put yourself a contrasting outer and cut that, what would I cut that? Say 6 inches wide, just so that it's that little bit bigger than your section. Oh, thank you, Donna. But it isn't difficult. One of the things, it will give you practice with your 1/4 inch seam. It will give you practice with your top stitching. And at the end of the day, if it isn't perfect, who is going to notice it? Because the effect of what it makes is it just takes away from, or it makes you not think about, oh, that top stitching is a little bit wobbly. It doesn't. It's useful, it's practical, and you can get lots of bits and pieces. Store your EPP in here, your bits of fabric, your actual templates, all sorts of things in there, little bits of makeup. You could even put your bobbins, your sewing bits and pieces in there as well. Okay, the heat is rising. Saying that, it does look a little bit stormy, but I think it's muggy. But I am now ready for a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, I think. But, oh, thank you, Nikki, and thank you everybody that was able to watch this morning. Obviously, it was a little bit difficult for those, as I say, who are not about. A lot of people do their shopping on a Friday morning as well. But I wanted to do it so that we're all up to date. What I will say as well, which reminds me, it is June the 1st on Monday. So make sure you download all of your PDFs for the month of May. There are quite a few. And Sunday, I shall be back at 6 o'clock. And we will be in this group as well. I should do it in this group for the monthly giveaway. So 6 o'clock and on Sunday. And then we'll be ready for the month of June and everything I've got to bring you then. So as Donna says, have a great day, everyone. Stay cool, because I don't think it's going to be a cold day. Stay cool, drink lots of fluid. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week, or Sunday, actually. But bye for now.